The morning Delia found out she was pregnant, she was standing in the break room of St. Mercy Hospital in nothing but scrubs and exhaustion, holding a test she'd bought from the CVS across the street on her lunch break because her period was 3 weeks late, and she'd been telling herself it was stress. It wasn't stress. She sat down on the floor right there between the vending machine and the recycling bin, and she didn't cry. She just breathed. In through her nose, out through her mouth, the way she told her patients to do when the news was bad and their hands wouldn't stop shaking. She breathed until her heart slowed down and she could think in a straight line again. Okay, she was 32 years old. She had her own apartment in Lincoln Park. She was a second-year OB/GYN resident, which meant she hadn't slept more than 5 consecutive hours in almost 2 years, and she was approximately $40,000 in debt, and she had done this exact thing on purpose. Not the fear, not the floor, but the baby she had wanted. 6 months earlier, after her last relationship ended the way all of them ended, quietly, without a real fight, just 2 people who'd grown too tired of trying to fit into each other's lives, Delia had made a decision. She was 31. She had a good career. She had a mother who would help. She had enough love stored up for a whole person, had been storing it for years without anywhere particular to put it. She'd gone through a licensed cryobank. She'd read every profile. She'd chosen donor 4471, a man listed as a graduate student in biochemistry, 6 feet tall, healthy family history, no genetic flags. His essay described a childhood in upstate New York, summers on his uncle's farm, a younger sister he clearly adored. He'd written about wanting to contribute something meaningful to the world. It had struck her as genuine, not like the others where you could feel someone performing for the page. She'd chosen him, and now she was sitting on the break room floor with a positive test in her hand and a shift starting in 40 minutes. She got up. She washed her hands. She went back to work. Her mother, Frances, cried when Delia told her. Happy tears, she insisted, pressing both palms to her cheeks. I'm not crying because I'm upset. I'm crying because you're going to be the most incredible mother, and I've known that since you were 9 years old and you bandaged every stray cat in the neighborhood. They kept getting into fights. Mom, you kept bandaging them. Frances reached across the kitchen table and grabbed both of Delia's hands. We're going to be okay. All 3 of us. You hear me? Delia heard her. She believed it, mostly. In the bright parts of the day, the ones where her coffee was still hot, and her patients were doing well, and the baby moved in a way that made her laugh out loud in the middle of a chart review. She believed it completely. It was only in the slow hours, the 2 a.m., ones when she was too tired to sleep and her brain went loose and unhelpful, that the doubt crept in, not about the baby, never about the baby, just about the shape of things, how narrow her life had become without her noticing, how much she'd built around her work and left everything else to later and later and later. She named him Oliver. He came on a Thursday 6 days past her due date during a January ice storm that shut down half the city. Her mother made it to the hospital in 40 minutes flat, sliding through intersections with both hands white-knuckled on the wheel. One of Delia's colleagues delivered him while she lay on the same table where she'd delivered dozens of other women's babies, suddenly understanding, in a way she hadn't before, exactly what it cost to do this. Oliver was 7 pounds, 4 ounces. He had her nose. He had a stranger's eyes, dark gray that would probably shift to brown, or maybe stay dark. She didn't know yet. She didn't know anything about him yet, except that she loved him in a way that reorganized everything she thought she understood about herself. She took 12 weeks of leave. She went back to work. Life settled into its new shape. Oliver was 14 months old when the letter arrived. It came on a Tuesday, addressed to Delia in handwriting she didn't recognize, no return address on the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, expensive stock, the kind of heavy cream paper that doesn't come from any printer. The handwriting was neat and controlled, and it said, Dr. Delia Marsh, I have recently become aware that you used the services of the Whitmore Cryobank in 2022. I believe you are the mother of my biological child. I'm not writing to make any claims or cause disruption to your life. I'm writing because there are things you should know, things about me specifically. I would like to speak with you before you find out another way. My name is Rowan Ashford. You can confirm who I am by searching that name. I ask only that you do so with a clear head and somewhere private. I'll call you Thursday at 7 p.m., if that's acceptable. If it's not, I won't call. The choice is entirely yours. R.A. She read it twice, standing at the kitchen counter with Oliver on her hip, gnawing on a piece of toast and watching her face the way babies do, like they're reading weather patterns. She set the letter down. She picked up her phone. She typed Rowan Ashford into the search bar. The results loaded, and she sat down because her legs stopped working right. Rowan Ashford, 40 years old, born in upstate New York, graduate degree in biochemistry from Cornell. Younger sister, Tatum Ashford, who had recently completed her PhD, grew up partially on his uncle's farm outside of Albany, and CEO of Ashford Group, a private holding company with interests in logistics, international trade, and maritime security, with offices in Chicago, London, and Dubai. Net worth, according to Forbes, somewhere north of $3 billion. Subject of a federal investigation 6 years ago that was closed without charges. Described in a Wall Street Journal profile as a man whom business rivals fear in the way people used to fear weather. There was a photograph. He was not what she'd pictured. She didn't know what she'd pictured. Exactly. Some soft-faced graduate student, probably. Someone who donated because he'd needed the money and had good genes and a generous heart. Not this. Not someone who looked like that, who looked like the kind of man who walked into a room and quietly took it over without raising his voice or changing his expression. Dark eyes. Strong jaw. A stillness about him that came through even in a photograph, even in the middle of a profile where he was clearly being studied. Oliver grabbed her phone and immediately put the corner in his mouth. Hey, give me that. She took it back. He protested loudly. She gave him another piece of toast. Thursday was 2 days away. She didn't sleep well Wednesday night. He called at 7 on the dot. She'd put Oliver down early and was sitting on the couch with a glass of water she wasn't drinking, the letter on the cushion beside her. Dr. Marsh. His voice was low and even. Not warm, exactly, but not cold. Controlled. You can call me Delia. She hadn't planned to say that. How did you find me? The bank is supposed to be confidential. It is. A pause. I didn't go through the bank. Then how? Wasn't quite a question. He answered it anyway. I have resources, I won't pretend otherwise, and I had a reason to use them. I'll explain all of it if you let me. She pulled her knees up to her chest. Outside, the city moved in its regular way, indifferent. The profile, she said. The essay. That was real? Every word. You were a graduate student, as he was 12 years ago. I was doing my PhD. I needed money, I thought. He stopped. Started again. I thought I was doing something ordinary. I didn't know who you were. I didn't know anything about it until recently. What changed recently? Another pause, longer this time. My situation changed. My company has been in a contract dispute with a logistics firm that has connections I'd rather not describe in detail on a phone call. 3 months ago, someone made it clear to me that they were aware of my donation history. I don't know how. I don't know what they intend to do with that information, but I wanted to make sure that if anything, if you were ever approached by anyone, you weren't caught off guard. Delia felt the blood leave her face. You're telling me my son might be used as leverage against you. I'm telling you it's a possibility I can't rule out. His voice didn't waver, but something in it shifted, became more careful. I'm also telling you that I intend to make sure that doesn't happen. I have people who can. He's 14 months old. Her voice came out harder than she intended. He can barely walk. He calls everything Dad. He doesn't have anything to do with whatever world you're in. No, Rowan said quietly. He doesn't. That's the whole point. She was quiet for a long moment. The apartment hummed around her. Refrigerator, traffic, the distant sound of upstairs neighbors. What do you want? She finally asked. I want to help keep you both safe. A beat. That's all I want. I know that's not how this looks from where you're standing. I know what you found when you searched my name. I know what kind of man you think I am. What kind of man are you? The pause that followed was the longest yet. A careful one, he said, and I'm asking you to let me be careful on your behalf. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She told him she'd think about it and hung up and sat very still, for a long time with her hand pressed flat over her sternum like she was trying to hold her heartbeat in place. She called her best friend Gwen the next morning, standing outside the hospital in the cold with 15 minutes before her shift. "Okay," Gwen said when Delia finished. "Okay, so the sperm donor is a billionaire crime lord. He's not a crime lord. The investigation was closed, without charges. That's what I said." "That's not reassuring, Dee. I know that. What are you going to do?" Delia watched a cab pull up across the street, watched a woman climb out dragging 2 rolling suitcases. "I don't know. He said he wants to help. He said there might be people who know about Oliver. People who know about Oliver," Gwen repeated slowly. "Delia, I know. You have to take this seriously. I am taking this seriously. I called you, didn't I? You called me instead of calling a lawyer. I'm about to call a lawyer." "Good. Call a lawyer first." And then Gwen paused. "I mean, $3 billion. I'm just saying it's in there, as a data point. Do not make this about money." I'm not. I'm just noting that the man apparently has the resources to protect your son, and he's offering, and you should at least." "I have to go in, Delia. I'll call you tonight." She called a lawyer. She called her mother. She did not call Rowan Ashford. He sent a text 3 days later. She didn't know how he had her number, and then immediately knew it was the same way he'd found her address, that said only, "No pressure. I meant what I said. The offer doesn't expire." She stared at it for longer than she should have. She did not respond. She met him 6 weeks later, by accident, or something so close to accident that the difference barely mattered. She was at the farmer's market, 2 blocks from her apartment, on a Saturday morning, Oliver in the carrier on her chest, buying apples from a woman who remembered her name and always saved her the Honeycrisps. Oliver was grabbing at the paper bags. Delia was trying to free a bag from his fist without dropping her wallet when she heard a voice say, quietly, from somewhere just behind her left shoulder, "You could hold both if you shifted him slightly." She turned. He was taller than the photograph had suggested, or maybe it was just that photographs didn't capture the particular quality of someone who took up more space than they actually occupied. He was wearing a dark jacket, no tie, hands in his pockets. He looked like someone who was making an effort to look ordinary and hadn't quite managed it. His eyes went straight to Oliver. Something crossed his face that she didn't have language for, something she recognized anyway, because she'd seen it in the mirror the morning after Oliver was born when she'd lain there unable to sleep, just watching him. She shifted Oliver. She freed the bag. "Are you following me?" she said. "No." He met her eyes. "I live 4 blocks from here. I've been coming to this market for 3 years. A beat. I didn't know you lived nearby." She didn't know if she believed him. She looked at his face, trying to find the lie, and couldn't locate it. Oliver, who had no instinct for tension whatsoever, grabbed the lapel of Rowan's jacket. Rowan went very still. "He does that," Delia said. "I don't." He stopped. "I've never spent much time around children. I can tell." She watched him. "You can." She stopped herself. "Can what?" She didn't know why she said the next thing. She would think about it for a long time afterward and never land on an explanation that fully satisfied her. "You can hold him if you want. He's not fragile." Rowan looked at her for a moment, then looked at Oliver. Oliver stared back at him with huge dark gray eyes that were, she noticed again, the same dark gray as the man standing in front of her. He reached out and took Oliver with both hands, careful and deliberate, the way people hold something they're afraid of dropping. Oliver grabbed his thumb. Rowan looked down at him and his whole face changed. Delia watched it happen. She thought, this is the most dangerous moment so far, and it has nothing to do with whatever people might want from him. She thought, he looks like someone meeting someone he didn't know he was waiting for. She thought, I am in a lot of trouble. They had coffee. It was not planned. She would tell herself this for weeks afterward, even when she stopped believing it. Oliver fell asleep in the carrier. They sat outside a cafe around the corner in the November cold, and she wrapped both hands around her cup and asked him to tell her the truth about what she was dealing with. He did. The Ashford Group had started 15 years ago as a legitimate shipping brokerage. Rowan had built it from the ground up after his graduate work, and for the first several years, it was nothing more complicated than that. Then a business partner had made decisions Rowan hadn't known about, arrangements with certain clients who moved certain things across certain borders in ways that didn't bear close examination. Rowan had found out. He'd tried to unwind it. It hadn't been as simple as unwinding something like that ever is. The federal investigation, she said, they didn't find what they were looking for because there wasn't much to find, not on my end. But the association exists. And the people I'm in conflict with now, they know that history. They think it makes me vulnerable. Does it? He looked at her steadily. Less than they'd like, and Oliver, they know he exists. I don't believe they know where you are, not yet. But I have people watching, and I think it's better for you to know than not know. And if I say I don't want your help, if I say I'll handle my own security, then I'll respect that. He turned his coffee cup in his hands, and I'll still have people watching anyway, at a distance, without telling you. Because that's... He stopped. I know how that sounds. It sounds like you're going to make decisions about my life without my input. It sounds like I already am, yes. He didn't flinch from it. I'm sorry. I don't know how to want something and also not want it at the same time. This? He glanced at the carrier, at Oliver's small sleeping face. I didn't know this was possible. I thought I'd signed away any claim to it years ago, and I was fine with that. And then I found out, and now I can't. He stopped again. You can't what? I can't be indifferent. That's all I'm saying. I can't make myself be indifferent. Delia looked at him for a long time. Oliver made a small sound in his sleep. She put her hand on his back automatically, feeling his breath rise and fall. I'm not going to make it easy for you, she said. I'm not asking you to. I don't want his life complicated. He's a baby. He's not a chess piece. No. Something in his voice roughened slightly. He's not, and I make all the decisions about him. All of them. You don't get a vote. Not yet. Maybe not ever understood. And I don't like you very much right now. He looked at her. A corner of his mouth shifted. Not quite a smile. Not enough to call it one. That's fair, he said. She looked away, back at the street, at the ordinary Saturday morning going on around them. You can come by on Sunday, she said very casually, like it didn't cost her anything. If you want to, I don't know. If you want to see him in a normal setting, not standing on a sidewalk. He was quiet for a moment. Sunday, he said. Don't read anything into it. I won't. I mean it. I know. He came on Sunday. He brought no gifts, which she'd half expected and half feared. The kind of conspicuous gesture that would have felt like a claim. He came empty-handed and sat on her apartment floor and let Oliver climb on him for 45 minutes, which Oliver did with the absolute zero discrimination he applied to everything. He chewed on Rowan's watch. He pulled himself up using Rowan's shoulder and looked very proud of this. He fell down twice and was unbothered both times. Rowan said almost nothing. He just watched Oliver with that particular expression she was beginning to recognize, the one that had no name. When Oliver went down for his nap, Delia made tea and they sat at the kitchen table and she asked him about his sister. Tatum, he said, and his face did something easy and warm for the first time. She's in Portland now. Marine biology. She's the better one. Better how? She knows what she is. I never quite. He looked at his hands. I spent a long time building things and not asking why. She always knew why. Why did you build it? He looked up. I was 25 and I wanted to prove something. Did you? I proved something. I'm not sure it was what I intended. She drank her tea. He drank his. The apartment was very quiet. You're not what I expected, she said. What did you expect? Someone harder. I am hard, he said. I'm hard about everything except. He stopped and glanced toward the hallway where the baby monitor sat quietly. Apparently that. She thought about her life before Oliver, how she'd arranged it carefully around her absence from it. All the things she'd set aside for later, all the empty space she'd gotten comfortable calling freedom. She thought about how Oliver had arrived and taken up every corner of everything, and how she'd mourned the space for about a week, and then not at all. She thought about how easy it would be to let this man in, and how that was the most frightening thing about him, not the money, not the connections, not whatever complicated world lived behind his careful eyes. The fact that it would be easy, that was the dangerous part. Over the following weeks, the threat clarified. Rowan's lawyers sent her a secured briefing, Information about the men in conflict with the Ashford Group, a company called Delacroix Maritime, and its leadership. Nothing that named specific dangers directly, but enough to make her understand that these were not abstract risks. She gave it to her own lawyer, who read it and was quiet for a long time afterward. She started taking different routes home from the hospital. She stopped mentioning Oliver by name on any of her public-facing social media. She called her mother and explained, in careful terms that didn't convey the full weight of it, that things were complicated and she needed Frances to be thoughtful about what she shared. Frances was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "This is about that man, isn't it?" "Mom, I'm not judging. I'm asking. It's complicated. You keep saying that. Things that are good are usually also complicated, Dee. This isn't about what's good. This is about safety. It can be about both." Delia did not say anything. "What's he like?" Frances asked. She tried to find the word and found several, none of which she wanted to say out loud. "He's careful. He's very careful. Is he good with Oliver?" She thought about Rowan on her living room floor, letting Oliver pull at his jacket, making no effort to redirect him, just patient and still and present. "Yeah," she said, "he is." Frances made a small satisfied sound. "Mom, don't." "You're making a face. I can hear it. I'm simply saying, goodbye, Mom." She hung up with Frances laughing softly on the other end. There was a night in December, cold and clear, the kind that made the Chicago skyline look like something you'd invent if you were trying to describe beauty to someone who hadn't seen it, when Rowan came by after Oliver was already asleep. Delia poured 2 glasses of wine, and they stood at her window watching the lights, and she asked him the question she'd been not asking for weeks. "Do you regret it?" He didn't pretend not to understand. No, even now. With all of this, especially now. He turned from the window slightly, just enough to look at her profile. "Do you?" She thought about the break room floor, the vending machine, the positive test in her hand, and the shift starting in 40 minutes. She thought about Oliver's face the first time he'd laughed, which had been at the cat on the Nature Channel, which was still her favorite fact about him. "No," she said, not for 1 second. He turned back to the window. "I know I'm not." He stopped. "I know what I look like from the outside. I know what I cost people, the ones who've trusted me. I know there's a version of this where the most decent thing I can do is stay useful and stay back. Is that what you want?" He was quiet for a long time. "I want to know him," he finally said, properly. "Not as a problem to be solved, not as something I need to protect from a safe distance. I want." He paused again, like he was being very careful with what came out next. "I want to know what he's going to be like." "You could," she said, softly. That could just be a thing that happens. If you're careful about it, I'm always careful. I mean careful with him." She looked at him directly now, making sure he understood what she meant. Not careful like you calculate risks. Careful like you know he's a person who's going to remember you. Rowan turned to look at her fully. "I know that," he said. "Okay," she said. "Okay," he said. Outside, the city did its usual indifferent, gorgeous thing. A siren rose and faded. Someone somewhere was probably being born. Someone somewhere was probably figuring out that their life was about to change into something they hadn't expected and couldn't manage to regret. The situation with Delacroix Maritime resolved in February, not cleanly but conclusively. Something involving testimony from a former employee, a civil filing in federal court, and a series of developments that Rowan's lawyers explained to her in language she mostly followed. The immediate threat collapsed. The men who had known about Oliver turned out to have wanted leverage in a negotiation, not a real target, and when the negotiation failed by other means, they lost their reason. Rowan called her on a Wednesday evening, Oliver in her lap, eating crackers and getting them everywhere, and he said, "It's over. The risk is manageable from here. You don't have to keep living like this." She felt the tension leave her body in a slow exhale. She hadn't known how much she'd been carrying it until it shifted. "Thank you," she said. "You don't have to." "No, I." She stopped Oliver from putting a cracker directly into his ear. "I mean it. Thank you." A pause. "I'm still going to want to be around. I know. Is that Rowan?" She shifted Oliver. He looked up at her with his enormous dark gray eyes and patted her knee like he was comforting her. She laughed despite herself. Yes, okay, that's fine. More than fine. She could hear something in his exhale that wasn't quite a breath and wasn't quite a word. Sunday, he said. Sunday, she said. Oliver put his hand over her phone and said, "Dat," with total conviction. He says Sunday works, Delia told Rowan. Tell him I'll bring the good crackers this time. She laughed. It surprised her, the realness of it, how it came up without her choosing it. She'd forgotten, somewhere in the middle of all of it, that things could be light like this. That conversations could tip towards something ordinary and warm without it costing her anything. She hung up and sat there for a moment with Oliver on her lap, and the cracker crumbs everywhere, and the February light coming through the window at the angle it only ever came at in February, low and specific and almost gold. She thought, this is not the life I planned. She thought, I am so glad I didn't get the one I planned. Oliver grabbed her face with both hands, small, warm, absolute, and said Mama in the same tone he said everything, which was the tone of someone who had decided that all things were equally interesting and worth investigating. Yeah, she said. I know. She kissed his forehead. He went back to the crackers. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside, for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was managing it alone.